Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm Colin. Welcome to Earwax, and today we're going to be talking about my top 5 live albums in my collection. So in this video, guys, we're going to be talking about some of the live albums in my collection that I absolutely love. Almost all of these are legitimate. There is one bootleg, but who doesn't have a live bootleg in their collection? These are going to be albums that I definitely wish I could have seen live. Only one of them I actually got to see in concert, but they're, at least the majority of them, 2 or 3 of them, definitely have films that go along with them, so you can go out and like watch the performances still. And that's where I saw the majority of them first, and then once I got into record collecting, was able to pick them up on vinyl. I think live music is the best way to experience music. I am a huge concert head. Even with the kid, I try and go to at least like 7 or 8 shows a year. Used to go to a lot more when I was younger, and it's great being able to hear a band do something a little bit different, see like how they perform it. And I think it really is the testament to how good a band is, or how good they can be, on like how they're able to perform live. This whole lip syncing generation is something I've never been able to get behind. I don't need to see some big fancy production if they're actually not playing the music. It's why I've never been into like seeing hip hop live or like a lot of modern pop artists. I would rather see like a full band actually perform the instruments, leave some room for like improvisation, and if someone slips up and it's not perfect, I think that almost adds to the experience. That being said, let's dive right in, get into my top 5 live albums in my record collection. Coming in at number 5 is going to be Under a Blood Red Sky by U2. Now, U2 is a pretty special band to me. They were my father's favorite band, or they are his favorite band. So I grew up listening to a lot of U2. This album in particular, I think, is just absolutely incredible. I forgot that he already had this on vinyl, so I ended up buying this for him. And then once he told me that he had it, I just ended up keeping it, and I'm so glad I did. So this is recorded in the late spring, summer of 1983 on the War tour. And this was actually recorded at 3 different locations. So there's 8 tracks on this live album. The film Under a Blood Red Sky, I think, is just their Red Rocks performance, but the actual release that they did has a couple songs from the Red Rocks performance, 1 song from their Boston stop, and then 5 songs from their Germany stop later in the tour. So it's absolutely incredible. It opens up with a bunch of songs from previous releases. So Gloria, 11 O'Clock TikTok, I Will Follow, and Party Girl. But then the B-side, which were all recorded at the Germany show, are Sunday Bloody Sunday, The Electric Company, New Year's Day, and 40, which is just probably 4 of the best songs they've ever written. And to have them all on one album live, right when like they are, and at least in my opinion, they're at the peak of their talent. And again, War is probably one of my favorite albums of theirs. I've seen them live probably, I think, 4 times now, 4 or 5 times. And they always put on a good show, but I would have loved to have been able to see them back in the day when they were still pretty raw, and being able to just kind of see them in their infancy before they got to be one of the biggest bands in the entire world. Not that they don't still put on a great live show. If you get a chance to go see them, definitely do it. But this is a great way to kind of see what they were like back in the day before they got really big and famous. And if you haven't listened to this album, definitely check it out. All right, and number 4 for my top 5 live albums in my collection is going to be King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard live at Red Rocks 2022. So this is the only one of these albums that I actually did see. This was a set of 3 shows, so collection of 3 shows they did at Red Rocks back in 2022. Each one of those shows was a 3-hour marathon set, and I saw the last one. So they did 2 in like early October, and then 1 in November. And I went and I saw the November show. It's my first time ever seeing Giz, and it's incredible. Actually, at the time of this recording, I'm about to go see them at Red Rocks again. So tomorrow I'm going to be seeing them again for the second time. And if you haven't seen them live and you like prog rock, you like experimental rock and roll, like go check them out because they're absolutely incredible. I am very excited. I'm going to be taking my wife. It's going to be her first time seeing them. This thing is hefty. So like I said, it's three-hour marathon sets. So this is 12 LPs that has all of that on it. And like I said, oh boy, this thing it's a heck of a listen. Again, 9 hours of music. If you feel like taking the time to check it out, definitely do it. I kind of made a decision a while ago that I'm only going to be buying King Giz live albums for shows that I've actually seen because they release almost all of their shows on vinyl, or at least a lot of their big ones. And that's just too much. But this thing's incredible, especially like getting to hear the 2 shows that I wasn't at because they didn't repeat a single track throughout those 3 shows. And then being able to like relive the one I was at was really cool. The artwork for this thing is incredible as well. It's very, you can see like kind of the bench, the bleachers, the benches, the seats of Red Rocks kind of, down. And then obviously the iconic like Red Rocks coming up the side here. And this kind of space goo monster reaching over that and causing chaos. And I think it's super fun. So if you haven't checked it out, definitely do it. If you are a fan of King Giz, see them live and then pick up whatever album you see live on vinyl and you're not going to be disappointed. Coming in at number 3 is going to be Stop Making Sense by Talking Heads. So this was recorded in 1984. This was the album accompaniment to the film that came out of the show, or at least the series of shows that they did at the Pantages Theater in Hollywood. It is one of the best concert films I've ever seen. I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. It's really cool. It's got like the opening of it is, starts with David Byrne like solo on stage, and like as they do each song, like more members are brought out, and it's just over the top. It's theatrical. So it's recorded in over the course of, I think, 4 different shows and then edited together. This is 9 tracks they kind of edited down for the album release. If you haven't seen the film, I'd say go watch that first and then listen to this. But it's still incredible. Again, I think this is Talking Heads at their peak when all the members were still really, really jamming and vibing. They've got pretty much all the big hits on this album. It's so fun. It is probably one of the things that I wish for most in this life is an actual Talking Heads reunion. I had the opportunity to see David Byrne a few years ago and I chose not to, mainly because like I really haven't been digging his solo stuff. And I watched like a couple like snippets of some shows before Denver stopped, and it just didn't seem like something that I really wanted to invest in, at least my time and money. But I do kind of, looking back on it, wish I did, because I still would love to see even just David Byrne live. But God forbid, if they ever get back together, I will spend an exorbitant amount of money to go see that show. But yeah, super fun album. I think Talking Heads are probably the single best new wave band to ever exist. They're one of the last like big new wave bands that I need to check off my bucket list. So if you haven't seen the film, if you haven't, heard the album, go check it out. Even if you're not like the biggest Talking Heads fan in the world, you'll definitely recognize a few of the tracks. And again, it's just, this is like them at their peak, and I don't think it gets better, at least for Talking Heads live, than this film and this album. Coming in at number 2 is going to be David Bowie, I'm Only Dancing, the Soul Tour 74. So this was recorded on the second half of the Diamond Dogs tour in 1974 at a few different locations. I think the majority of this was at the Michigan Palace in Detroit. The last 3 songs were recorded in like Nashville at like towards the end of that tour. But this didn't actually get released on vinyl until 2020 for Record Store Day. So I was pretty excited to pick this up. This is a pretty famous tour of his. So again, it's the second half of the Diamond Dogs tour, but it's almost considered like its own tour. Like, well, that's why they call it the Soul Tour, because he started teasing a lot of stuff from his upcoming album, Young Americans. The track list on this thing is absolutely insane. You got some classic hits like Moon Age Daydream and Rebel Rebel, but he was also teasing a lot of stuff that would eventually go on to be Young Americans, which is I think one of his best albums. So it's a really, really fun listen. I've got a few different Bowie live albums, and I kind of had a hard time picking which one, but I think what it came down to for me is this the one I go back to more regularly. I'll throw this one on. I have like the Ziggy Stardust tour, or the film soundtrack, which is basically a live recording, and a couple other ones. But like this one, I do think is the one that I go back to the most. If you're not familiar with David Bowie, I don't know what you're doing on this channel, because he is a god and arguably one of the greatest musicians of all time. And if you are interested enough in music to watch me talk about it for, however long this goes on, you got to be familiar with Bowie. He's the GOAT. He's the best, in my opinion, when it comes to just like long-standing pop and rock stars. And this is probably, I think, one of his not just best live releases, but I think this is like him at his peak as well. He had a lot of peaks and valleys throughout his career. I think you can really pinpoint any moment in his career and say he was at his absolute best, because he was so diverse and there were so many different genres and themes that he played around with. But this album right here is like the cusp of him going from like his glam rock, kind of art rock persona, superstar era, into just like a straight up, just full blown rock star. And it really gets into, I think, like the core great albums of his career. Like this is right smack in the middle of it. So if you haven't checked it out, definitely go pick it up. I'm sure you can find copies out there. And it's definitely one that if I could go back and see any live concert in history, this would be in my top 5 to see. Now, the number 1 live album in my collection is going to be Pink Floyd's Live at Pompeii. Now, I'll be straight up, this is a boot. This has never, as far as I know, been officially pressed. Generally kind of stay away from boots, but like this is arguably one of the greatest live performances in the history of rock and roll, and I couldn't do this video and not have it. This is a DVD, so if you want to watch this, if you want to listen to this, go out and buy the DVD. But like this performance is fucking mind-blowing. This is, in my opinion, Pink Floyd at their absolute best. This was recorded in 1971, so right before, or at least like a couple years before, Dark Side of the Moon came out. And if you go and watch the film, they actually like later on cut in scenes and footage of them in the studio recording Dark Side of the Moon, as well as like a couple other like interviews kind of scattered throughout here and there. But this album, the material in this album is taken from pre-Dark Side of the Moon. So like before they got really popular, before their core 4 albums, and the recording specifically of echoes on this album from the album Metal is mind-blowing. It's so goddamn good. This whole album front to back is really fun. So they got a couple really good deep cuts. They've got, Careful With That Axe Eugene from Piper, Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun off Saucer. The main reason that I talk so highly and think so highly of this album is for their performance of echoes. I think it's absolutely unmatched. The cool thing about this concert, or this film as well, was that they didn't record in front of a live audience, so they went to the ruins of Pompeii, set up their equipment, and recorded it just for this film. So if I could be a fly on the wall, this would be the number 1 concert I'd go back and watch or see live in person. Obviously, no one got to see that outside of like their film crew and their sound engineers and like all the techs that they had with them. But like, holy shit, is this not just the pinnacle of prog rock right here? I don't think it gets better than this. I don't know what else to say about it. Go watch the film, buy the DVD, enjoy seeing the best rock and roll band of all time at their absolute peak, and you won't be sorry, because it's absolutely incredible. All right, cool. So that's it for me, guys. Those are my top 5 live albums in my collection. Let me know down in the comments what your top 5 live albums are. If you've listened to these, let me know. If you haven't, go check them out. And as always, I'll talk to you later. Peace.